Call the meeting to order. It's a special meeting, our first budget hearing, and I'll ask for a roll call.
Mayor Paul,
Here.
Vice Mayor Starkey,
Here.
Councilmember Whitman,
Here.
Councilmember Hatton,
Here.
Councilmember Lewis,
Here.
Mr. Lamack,
Here.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Holste, Mr. Sherwin.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. I start off with calling on Mr. Lamack to make a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Richard Lamack, Town Administrator. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, staff, members of the public. We're here for our fiscal year 2025 budget hearing. You'll have to bear with me a little bit because there's a lot of language that has to be read for legal purposes. To ensure compliance with the Florida's truth and millage or the TRIM statutes, we must first discuss the town's operating millage rate. For fiscal year 2025, the town proposes a millage rate of 5.6250 mils. The proposed operating millage rate is 7.36% greater than the rollback rate of 5.2396 and is a tax increase under state law. This operating millage rate is necessary to fund the operating budget of the town, to achieve our budget objectives, and to maintain our strong fiscal stability. The voted debt millage rate that covers debt service on our general obligation bonds is proposed to decrease from 0.2020 mils to 0.1868 mils. The general fund budget will increase $16.1 million or 9% in fiscal year 2025. This increase in part is due to pension costs, our collective bargaining agreements, and our additional positions, including 7 for the police department and 10 in utilities. The operating expenditures will increase 18% or $8.2 million due to $2 million budgeted for stormwater assessment, which I'll be covering more detail shortly. The increase also includes $3.4 million for the cost of disposal of residential solid waste following the change in payment methodology, which is offset by revenue that's associated with it. Other increasing operating expenditures include contractual services, specifically the community bus, opioid abatement and prevention programs, fleet-related charges, insurance premiums for flood, property, and various other liability insurances, and investments in information technology. The capital outlay expenditure will increase due to the police department's purchase of body-worn cameras, radios, and replacement of automatic external defibrillators. The general fund will transfer over $13.6 million to the capital projects fund for 25 projects to be completed in fiscal year 2025 in our capital improvement plan. Lastly, $599,000 from the general fund will be transferred to the vehicle maintenance fund to fund purchases that are additions to the town's fleet. On the revenue side, the general fund will experience growth in ad valorem operating taxes, transportation surtax revenue, electric utility taxes, electric franchise fees, interest on investments, and investment earnings. The town has also budgeted revenues related to the Seminole Compact revenue sharing, school zone speed cameras, residential disposal costs, and a newly implemented stormwater assessment. The stormwater assessment revenue will provide the town funding solely to enhance the maintenance, inspection, and repair of the town's drainage infrastructure. Lastly, we continue to budget $1 million in revenue to be received from the Community Redevelopment Agency. This will be the third of 4 annual debt payments due on the $4 million loan made in fiscal year 2022. As you know, the town's adopted fund balance policy includes provisions for setting aside funding for unforeseen emergencies. These include hurricanes and pandemics. We are pleased to report that we are in compliance with our general fund emergency reserve policy and remain fiscally healthy. The proposed fiscal year 2025 annual budget carries out the direction provided by Town Council at the Vision and Goal Setting session and the public workshops held this past spring and summer. In a few minutes, Mr. Ackerman will come up and review the town's budget priorities, and we'll go over other fiscal year 2025 budget details. But first, I wanted to share with you the townwide budget outlook. In fiscal year 2025 incorporates the following factors and highlights. The towns and the CRA tax base continues to grow due to increased property values and new construction. As previously mentioned, the operating millage rate will remain unchanged at 5.625 mils, while the voted debt millage rate will be reduced in fiscal year 2025. The voted debt millage rate is due to new construction and higher property values. This will be the 11th consecutive year that the voted debt millage rate has decreased. The residential fire assessment remains unchanged, but as a reminder, the fire assessment revenues by law are solely expended on fire-related expenses. As presented during 2 stormwater public workshops, 4 community forums, a council meeting, and the vision and goal setting session, the town will be implementing a new stormwater assessment in fiscal year 2025. The stormwater assessment revenue must only be used for stormwater-related expenses. This assessment will provide the town funding to enhance our maintenance, inspection, and repair of the town's drainage infrastructure. The initial rate resolution for this assessment was approved during the July 24th, 2024 council meeting agenda. The final assessment resolution for this assessment will be on the September 9th, 2024 special assessment agenda for consideration and approval. The proposed stormwater assessment for residential properties is $5 per month, or $60 annually, and will be included on the November property tax bill from Broward County. Property owners were notified of the proposed assessment and the town's council September 2024 public hearing for adoption of the assessment via the trim notice, which was mailed on August of 2024. We also included an insert in the trim notice specifically to inform property owners about the new stormwater assessment. We currently have staff assigned to a dedicated phone line to answer questions associated with the stormwater assessment. The residential solid waste assessment will decrease by $37.61 next year. The reduction is due to lower than anticipated disposal costs, the application of prior year savings, and the town's assuming direct payment responsibility for the disposal costs. That's on residential. The town will now pay WIN, or Waste Innovations, which was formerly Wheelabrator, directly instead of those payments being made by our solid waste service provider. On Public Safety Master Plan, the police and fire rescue departments continue to move forward with their strategic planning initiatives. For fire, the focus is on health and safety, staffing, and service delivery. For police, the focus includes enhancing public safety, community engagement and communications, as well as employee recruitment and retention. For fiscal year 2025, this also includes the anticipated cost to operate the body-worn camera program. The annual budget will provide nearly $32.4 million for 64 projects in the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program. The Water and Sewer Fund will appropriate $12.6 million of that amount for 24 projects to maintain our infrastructure. The General Fund will provide over $13.6 million for 25 projects. So with that being said, now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ackerman to go into a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lemack. Good afternoon or good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Council members. Good to be here in front of you today. Today I'm going to cover some items related to the fiscal year 2025 budget. First, we're going to start with the fiscal year 2025 budget priorities. The budget priorities as established by Town Council at the Vision and Goal Setting session are fiscal stability, transformative redevelopment, embracing the technology movement, and promoting sustainability and resiliency. We're going to start first with fiscal stability, which is my personal favorite. So fiscal stability. As we know, we received the AAA bond rating when we issued the special obligation bonds a few years ago. It's important for us to try to maintain that. We are one of 8 municipalities that in the state of Florida that received the AAA rating, so very proud of that. Also in the future, we know there's a good chance we'll be issuing bonds in the future. We know they could be through the general fund, which could be a general obligation bond. It could also be a special obligation bond. We know the Community Redevelopment Agency, they're looking to extend. And if they do, they may look to be issuing bonds as well. And now with utilities or the Water and Sewer Fund, we will more likely be issuing bonds in the near future for that. That will be determined at a later date. One other thing, as Ms. Lemek alluded to earlier on, is our emergency reserves. We have maintained our emergency reserves, and we're hopeful to continue to do so in the future. A few years ago, after Hurricane Irma, we did have to utilize some of those reserves. But the good news is we were able to replenish that within 4 years. So as of right now, our emergency reserves are where they're supposed to be. And lastly, we want to have a balanced budget. Now, by law, we're required to have one, but we want to have a balanced budget which is prudent and responsible. And that includes having a balanced budget, but not using any one-time revenue sources for ongoing operations. And we are proud to say, for the fiscal year 2025 budget, we have that working in our favor. Next, the next budget priority is transformative redevelopment. So, as one of our goals is to rebrand the Regional Activity Center, or the RAC, as well as the Transit-Oriented Corridor. Now, we want to remind you that zoning codes, we don't look to change any of those. Those will remain unchanged. Also, we are also wanting to highlight the opportunities and uniqueness within the town of Davie. We want to highlight that not only for the town of Davie, but also for the Tri-County area. I mean, we get to enjoy it, but the Tri-County area should also enjoy it. Also, we have a spotlight set for the town's central location in Broward County. We know that we have the educational hub status around us. We know that we're very close to the airports. We also have close to the trails, also as well to the ports. We're in a very good location. We want to go ahead and highlight that to everybody else. Affordable housing, we know how important that is to Town Council. That has been a very important topic for us, and we continue to pursue it. Currently, we are revising the inclusionary housing ordinance, and that will encourage more workforce housing through an increase in the payment of lieu of taxes, as well as extending the period of affordability. As we noted before, the CRA is working on an extension through 2039. If that is approved, Broward County funding will be used to fund housing projects, affordable housing projects. And lastly, the Pioneer Loft Project. That is a workforce housing project that is scheduled to break ground in 2025. And we're looking for them to break ground at the former wastewater plant site on Davie Road. Sticking on the transformative redevelopment topic, the 441 redevelopment is commencing. We're moving forward with that. And with that, the district is anticipating to break ground during fiscal year 2025. As we know, the district is the largest project in the town of Davie's history. The project will include 5 buildings totaling 1,256 units, as well as 36,000 square feet of commercial space. Davie Road redevelopment. The CRA has allocated $4.4 million for land purchases, and that land purchases will be used for future redevelopment projects. Now we're going to switch over to embracing the technology movement. We're looking to create an online payment portal. That portal will actually help townwide. That will help different divisions right off the start. For example, building division, engineering division, planning and zoning, as well as possibly utility customer service. The goal here is to improve the town's credit card processing approach. We are looking to review the capabilities for the implementation of a one-stop shop. And lastly, this will better help serve our customers, give better rates as well. The more we have under one umbrella as a one-stop shop, the better rates we can offer our residents when they utilize, when they make payments. Also, the other topic we want to cover is enterprise multi-factor authentication expansion. Ultimately, the goal of this project is to have all personnel have a multi-factor tokens that's assigned to their network accounts. This will ensure proper authentication into the system. However, right now, the project is on hold because right now there are some conversations being held by the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. IT is currently working with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and Davie PD, and they are working on creating a different type of standard that we can work with. Now we're going to switch over to the fourth and final budget priority, and that is promoting sustainability and resiliency. So we are all very familiar with the challenges that we are having with significant rain events. It causes street flooding, it's causing damages to properties, homes, businesses. And what it really impacts for us is disrupting the public safety response. So we need to look for solutions for these type of things. Solutions are important for us. So overall, what we need to do is we need to find funding sources that we can utilize that will help the maintenance and repair of existing infrastructure. So for fiscal year 2025, we did find a new funding source for this, and that is the stormwater assessment. Overall, we will bring in approximately $2.5 million for the stormwater assessment revenue. Now currently, as noted earlier on, they are on the TRIM notice, the Truth and Millage notice that went out back in August, and it will be on the tax bill that goes out in November. Also, we have existing funding sources that we utilize for planning and capital projects. We have, for the last several years, we have allocated general fund dollars towards stormwater. We have used federal and state appropriations, and also ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. We've utilized all these funding sources to help us with the significant rain events. Staying with this topic, depending on the funding source that we're utilizing, we can help determine what type of projects that we can utilize them for. So for example, use of stormwater funding, we constructed the new river estates drainage improvements, and we used the ARPA funding for that. We are using different funding sources for the planning studies in several neighborhoods. That includes planning studies at Orange Park, Park City Estates, Driftwood Estates, Royal Palm Estates, as well as Griffin Road neighborhoods, and through the transit-oriented corridor area. Also, we're using funding towards stormwater management services, including repairing facilities, as well as enhanced maintenance. Staying on the same topic, a town-wide vulnerability assessment study is necessary and mandatory to apply for vulnerability and resiliency implementation grants through the state. So right now, the town, as we know, we are in receipt of a $500,000 grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And with that, we are able to use that for public outreach. And the public outreach will involve public outreach meetings as well as community engagement. Also, we are able to utilize it for data collection. Some examples of data collection include using our GIS database, details provided by the town, as well as examination of publicly available information, and also inundation mapping and modeling. So these are some things we'll be using for that. The goals of the vulnerability assessment aims to evaluate the accessibility of the town's infrastructure and critical facilities. Also, the plan is to develop strategies and mitigate and adapt to existing infrastructure. And lastly, we're going to create a climate adaptation plan, and that will provide recommendations for future town critical facilities, which can be prioritized by our town council at their discretion. Now we're going to jump into some key dates that we had during the fiscal year 2025 budget process. Now, the public that is here today may not understand the effort that goes into the budget during the course of the year. A lot of effort is put into this, so they may not realize how much is accomplished over the last 9 months. Now, although we start the slide in March, the actual budget process begins back in December. Back in December, we are currently finalizing the current year's budget book that we are sending over to the Government Finance Officers Association so we can be considered for the Distinguished Budget Award. And while that's happening as well, we're working on the 5-year forecast that we put together and sent to administration in January or February. Next, payroll. Payroll is a very large function for the town of Davie. It makes up approximately 37% of our entire budget. We start working on that in February to start getting ready for the upcoming fiscal year. So come March and April, 2 very busy months for us. We start with, we have department meetings between Budget and Finance, Administration, and Human Resources. Between March 4th and April 24th, we met with every department and every division to start going over the fiscal year 2025 budget. In March 14th, as we know, we had our Council of Vision and Goal Setting session. Come March 20th, we had our budget and capital program kickoff meetings, which we met with all the different departments. They came and we did a kickoff meeting with them. We asked all the departments and divisions to submit their budgets to us by April 11th, 2024. Now comes also another part of April and May. During that period of time is when we solicit feedback from our residents, from our stakeholders. So in April, we had our 3 employee budget sessions, and in April and May, we had our 4 townwide community forums, in which each time we did seek community feedback. During those presentations, we included items such as the budget outlook, significant capital projects, short and long-term priorities, as well as economic development, amongst other topics. And during these, we clearly did receive feedback from our residents. Also, during this period of time, we did have 2 stormwater public workshops to educate the public of the implementation of our stormwater assessment. So next, at this period of time, we are preparing the budget, we are revising the budget, and we're preparing it to submit to town council. So at this point, come June 5th, we had our town council budget workshop, the first budget workshop. And during that budget workshop, we focused mostly on the general fund. We went over significant changes from the previous year to the coming year, as well as other topics during that period of time. Also, at the same time, we had the capital improvement program workshop as well to go over significant projects for the next fiscal year. Then we had the second budget workshop on July 24th. At that point, we also discussed the general fund and discussed any significant changes from the first budget workshop. During the second budget workshop also, we covered the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency. We discussed the utilities fund as well as a community endowment fund. Also, come now August, we had the manager retreat in August, which was a few weeks ago. And then we come to today, the first public hearing where we adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2025. Also on tonight's council meeting, you have the capital improvement program, which will hopefully be adopted as well. Then next week, a week and a day from today, we will have the fire assessment, solid waste assessment, and stormwater assessment public hearings. And then 2 weeks from today, we will have the second public hearing, and which the fiscal year 2025 budget will be adopted. And again, just as a reminder, we're not here tonight to go over all the same stuff we went over during the first 2 budget workshops. We're here to do what's legally required by law, give a summary of our budget outlook, and also we want to basically ensure that we're trim compliance. So the next part is we're going to go over some of the notable impacts or the notable changes in the general fund since the last workshop. The overall budget in the general fund went up $9.1 million, and we'll cover that shortly. So the first item on there, payroll-related items. As we discussed in previous workshops, we like to keep our payroll budget up to date the best we can. So someone gets a promotion, somebody there's a new hire, somebody resigns, retires, we at that point update the budget to the best of our ability. And that actually had a reduction on the budget by $78,000. We also incorporated the changes in the tentative FOPA collective bargaining agreement, which is on tonight's council meeting agenda. If it's approved, we've incorporated everything into the budget related to that collective bargaining agreement. Also, for the non-represented group, a 3% COLA was put into the budget at a cost of approximately $425,000. Based on the updated stormwater assessment roll that we received from the county, we're able to increase the revenues and expenditures for the stormwater assessment by $500,000. Also, due to other changes due to IT, we had to increase the IT charges by $78,000. These next 2 items are the 2 significant items that were the changes in our budget from the last budget workshop. As previously noted, the town is assuming responsibility for residential disposal costs. The town is now paying Wind Waste Innovations, who was formerly known as Wheelbrader, directly instead of going through our provider. So because we're paying it for directly, we had to increase our revenue and our expenditures both by the $3.4 million. The second large part that also increased was at the second budget workshop, we had talked a little bit about utilizing general fund reserves for future CIP projects. So we have done so by the tune of $5.9 million. And again, the CIP, all this information will be broken out tonight on your agenda to the improvement of the CIP for fiscal year 2025 on your council meeting agenda. Also, we have added into the budget $75,000 for the landscaping maintenance. So at this time, we'll be evaluating that and incorporating that into the budget. And lastly, at the last budget workshop, we did have some budget grant revenue in there and expenditures related to grants that we were anticipating but had not yet been awarded. Well, as of the date of putting this budget together, we had not yet been awarded those projects, so those grants, so we took them out of the budget at this point. So that was a reduction of the budget of $850,000. So on this slide here, we have gone through and went through all the municipalities, and they're basically having their budget hearings as well tonight or around this time, and we were able to see what each of them are proposing for the fiscal year 2025. So what you see here in front of you is what's being proposed by all the municipalities, but it can change. It may go lower, it's not going to go higher, but each of the municipalities will go through their process as well, and these numbers are not finalized, but this is what they're proposing. And as you can see here, the town of Davie, we're at 10th lowest, the bottom 1/3 of the county, which is where we typically are. And just an interesting information, if we were somewhere towards the middle, we had, let's say, around a 6 millage rate, that would add about $5.3 million to the town's budget. But we're prudent, we're conservative, and we don't add that, we don't increase the budget just for those reasons. For the fire assessment, same disclaimer from before, these numbers are not finalized yet. But what's interesting is we have moved down from fiscal year 2024 to 2025. We were number 17 last year. So if everything does get approved the way it is, we would actually move down to number 21 overall. So basically, we'd have the 7th lowest fire assessment and the 10th lowest millage rate, which is very good. And lastly, we do want to remind you that this is the first year that we have the fully disabled veterans exemption within the fire assessment. We haven't shown this in the past during the budget hearings, but we thought it'd be important to show this year and probably moving forward. For the solid waste assessment, for municipalities that have it through the TRIM or going through the property appraiser's office, these are the ones that are out there, and you can see the town of Davie, we are the 3rd lowest solid waste assessment. Now, other municipalities may have a solid waste, may charge a solid waste, but they may do it through let's say a water bill. So we don't know what theirs are going to be, but the ones that use the county, these are what their rates are going to be for next fiscal year, their proposal. So right now, we're pretty low there. And of course, this is the first year that we have our stormwater assessment, and you can see we're at the very low end as well. And the same disclaimer as before, these are the municipalities that use the TRIM notice to send out their information, and we're at the 3rd lowest on this. So, as we always like to do, we'd like to show how does our fiscal year 2025 budget impact the property owner. We can see an annual increase of $86.81, or $7.24 per month. At previous workshops, we've discussed the impact and how this occurs. And just as a reminder, the first line you see in front of us, the ad valorem, the increase is $67.50. That we have no control over. We discussed it previously, and you see the note on the bottom. Broward County Property Appraiser's Office, they increased the taxable assessment by 3%, and you can see the impact is $67.50. That makes up approximately 78% of the increase. And the other big part of the change in the annual variance is due to the stormwater assessment, the increase of $60. But that $60 is somewhat offset by the solid waste assessment as well as the debt service assessment, the debt service millage rate. And lastly, just where are we going next? What's next for us? We have our special assessments hearing next week, September 12th at 12 p.m., same location. And then 2 weeks from today, we'll do it again on September 18th at 5:15 p.m. Mayor, thank you for your time. We'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Lemach?
No, Mayor, we're just here to address anything you may have.
Okay, is there any questions or concerns? Yes?
I just have a question, and I should have asked this earlier, and probably in private, but it's been written down and I never got a chance to ask last time. So just for me, when we collect the 25% reserve that we want to keep in reserves, the interest that is accrued on that, does that get used to shore up at the end of the budget year, the interest rates? We can use that in general later, or do we roll it over to the next year? How is that usually?
The interest that's accrued on the 25% is just part of the budget, and it just builds in. It's part of the revenue what we anticipate. It's just the interest revenue is on all the town's funding. So, but we don't add that to the 25% of the emergency reserve. We just calculate that again for the following year. So the 25%, the interest that we receive on that money just is budgeted for as part of the town's budget.
The other thing I never asked was, we have the 25%, but then we also have the 3%. So is that 3% factored in, or is that on top of? It's on top of, right?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. And then last, oh, that was it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job.
So at this point, we go forth with the first item. Okay. First item is an ordinance. It's a first reading. Mr. Sherwin, would you read the ordinance by title, please?
An ordinance of the Town of Davie, Florida, establishing the millage rates to be levied for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, fiscal year 2025, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. This is the first reading. The final reading, as was mentioned before, will be held on September 18th. By law, I must read this public announcement. The Town of Davie's tentative operating millage rate to be levied for fiscal year 2025 is 5.6250 mils, which is 7.36% greater than the rollback rate of 5.2396 mils. The tentative voting debt service millage rate for fiscal year 2025 is 0.1868 mils. This is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public here that would like to speak specifically on the millage rate? All right, seeing none, I'll close the hearing. Anything from the town council? Okay. May I have a motion to approve? Don't all jump at once.
Motion approved.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Hatton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Starkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Paul.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Number 2 is the budget. This is in an ordinance. Mr. Sherman, would you read it by title, please?
An ordinance of the Town of Davie, Florida, adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, fiscal year 2025, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. A second public hearing on the ordinance will be held on September 18th at 5:15 p.m. Was there anyone from the public that would like to speak on the budget itself? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there anyone from town council? I think you already asked your question. If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the budget?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I thought she'd said it. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Yeah, Michelle did.
We can never hear her.
You gotta speak up. Second.
Thank you. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Paul,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Starkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Hatton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. This closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. The next special meeting is the special assessment hearing on Thursday, September 12th at 12 p.m. I just want to thank staff, Mr. Lamack, and everyone, every single individual in this town participates in this budget process. And as Mr. Ackerman reiterated in his presentation, you can see that this is really more than a 9-month process. They take about a month off in between the adoption of the new budget and starting to work on the next year. But again, this is a team effort, and we can't possibly do it singly. We have to work together, and I want to thank you very much for all the work that every single one of you have done. We appreciate it. Thank you. If there are no objections, we're dismissed until the CRA meeting at 6.